And you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Solve for Why podcast.
The Solve for Why podcast.
Oh, wow. That just like
You went old school.
like snuck its way in there.
Right. First, yesterday we had the old intro.
Well, now we got you frozen on the...
That's weird. I promise I'm not staring at my phone right now.
Man, it's been rough. It's been a rough comeback.
All right.
Glad it's a short week.
Yeah, I know.
Man,
we need a break.
The Only Friends podcast.
That's it. That's what we're on.
Welcome under the Solve for
we're
Why
back.
umbrella. Hey, look at you. You're moving.
Hey, all right.
Wow, congratulations. Man, I've had this thing with my left ear. I should really get it's so funny.
In there.
I said this to somebody else and that was their immediate response. Like, oh, you have a whatever they're called. It's been like 2 years where it just like goes, it feels like I have water in my ear. But I can make it like stop pretty easily, but then it just like comes, like I put headphones on, it comes right back.
That's
It's really bad.
Should probably have that looked at.
There's a lot of things I should have looked at. A lot of things. I have a spot on my head that just like appeared.
Oh no, that's not good.
This is
It's been there for like a year and a half. It's probably melanoma. Who knows?
If it's not getting bigger,
Well, it's not getting any smaller.
okay.
Yeah, maybe get that looked at. This is the is plight the right word of getting older?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
we'll allow it.
It's things happen, right? Like I'll be just sitting and like watching TV and I'll feel like a twinge in my. I'm like, oh, this is it.
Yeah.
It's happening. I guess this is how we go out.
I thought you were going somewhere else with that.
And
I sneezed.
Yeah.
This was last year, like around like a year and a half, 3 months ago. I sneezed in Thanksgiving, and my back went out.
Yeah.
I pulled I don't know how many muscles.
Like, God damn. That's nice having Michelle there because, like, well, first she can do CPR
To remind you that you're not dying.
Yes, yeah, right. She's like, I'm like, I don't know. It's like a chest pain or something. She's like, it's probably just gas. I'm like, really? She's like, I'm like, in my chest? She's like, yeah, it can go all over the place. I'm like, really?
Sure.
Like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And then like it would subside. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not having a heart attack.
Right.
Woo.
We might lose you in that chair, man.
I know. I didn't
This is
realize
like
the
really-
green on green.
Yeah, this is
I'm like
really
Homer,
monotone.
like going back into the hedges.
Oh, that's so good.
When you become your
man.
favorite GIF.
Yeah. Good thing I
Man.
didn't wear the green pants with it.
Do you have them?
I do not that doesn't go specifically with this.
Well,
maybe it does.
maybe
actually.
it does.
They're both from Target.
right. Where else would they possibly be? All right, we got a great show lined up for you guys today. We have a few topics to cover in the Twitter streets. Pads is out there making a hard statement on the current affairs in the online ecosystem. We'll get to discuss that in a little bit. We're also going to talk about the JMO thread with regards to selling public action at markup and what his experience was over the last year, firing pretty hard. Seems like he did about $5 million worth of buying.
Yeah, he went $4 million. He profited $5 million.
Yeah, my apologies.
Yeah, how nice.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
It's
sounds sharp.
yeah, 125% ROI. That ain't bad.
Especially when you're pumping out that kind of volume.
Right. And then to get things started, well, sort of to get things started, we're going to talk about the year that was in 2023 and what we hope to accomplish in 2024. Maybe more so centered around the poker sense of things. I somehow got tricked. And I say somehow because I was a willing participant, but I absolutely got tricked here with Landon texting me saying, we're starting 75 hard the day you get back. I said, all right, buddy, I'll one-up you. I'll start 75 hard the day before I get back.
Yeah.
How about that? And, you know, here I am, day 4, loving it, just crushing it. Didn't have to do anything different except record the shit that I eat. That's it. post, you know?
Yeah.
Where's Landon?
Is he already off it?
Never started it.
Then you can't be
Bro,
off it.
he
if you
needs to
haven't started
too. Like,
Is he
he's
getting
getting a little soft.
Uh-oh.
Getting a little soft.
So what are all those pictures of him, or those videos of him, you know, just putting up 200 pounds, you know?
Well, you can be soft and strong.
Soft and, you can be soft and strong.
Yeah, man. You add a lot of weight to your body, you can move a lot more weight in the gym.
That is true. There I am.
You know?
That's Landon after you asked him to
Landon. What are you talking about?
That's Landon after you asked him to do 75 hard.
I didn't even ask him. He told me we were doing it prior to me leaving for. I think I told the story off air, but I'm going to tell it on air. So right before I left for Tahoe with Henry, Landon ordered 3 pints of ice cream from I don't remember where.
Him and his ice cream.
And the flavors were like really unique. It was like Cookie Monster, which was incredible. It's that blue ice cream with like, you know, the cookie chunks in it.
So you partook.
I had a spoonful. So he had like Cookie Monster, and then he had like this like chai tea. It's like, what are we doing here, man? Like, if you're gonna get dessert,
Yeah, just like really go for
you
it.
want chai tea? Go drink a fucking tea. That's actually healthy for you. You know what are we doing here? And then the last one was like, I don't know, some like wild fudge brownie shit. It was just, you know, I'm sure it was good. I didn't have any of it. Anyway, so he orders these 3 pints of ice cream. Henry and I are like hanging out, and we're like, the fuck? Like, we just don't get any? And he's like, no. So he eats 3 pints. two and a half.
3, like in one sitting.
Bro, in minutes. I mean, like, I've never seen someone power through.
A lot.
It's remarkable. So he powers through 3 pints of ice cream just like that. You know,
Remind me what a pint looks like.
a pint would be a quarter of a gallon.
Okay, again, show me with your hands
No.
what a pint looks like.
No.
2 cups in a pint.
Eighth of a gallon.
Is it 2 cups in a pint?
Yeah, there's 4 quarts in a gallon.
4 quarts in a gallon. Two pints in a quart.
Yeah, so 1/8 of a gallon.
Okay, so yeah, 1/8 of a. Okay,
Still.
so he had just shy of a half a gallon of ice cream.
Yeah,
right.
it's 2 cups.
Yeah, it's about like yay big.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot. Especially 3 of them.
So actually, I don't even think we were complaining, but somehow I think Henry said like, I can go for some ice cream. Landon goes, all right. Orders 5 more pints. Right?
Henry gets 1.
Now it's been 3 minutes since the first 3 pints arrived. And I asked him if I could try the other one. I can't remember what it was. And he goes, it's gone. I was like, the fuck? And he goes, don't worry, I have 5 more coming. I go, you didn't ask me if I wanted any? He goes, I have 5 coming. You'll have some of the ice cream.
Will you?
Will I? Will I, Brian? That's the question. So 5 pints arrive.
Gone.
I went somewhere, I don't remember. Come back, and I open the freezer, and all that's in there is like a quarter pint of the one that Henry ordered. And I ask him, I go, what happened? He goes, I ate them. So he had 7 pints of ice cream.
Jeez.
How's he not like in diabetic shock?
He's young.
Yeah, it's true.
He's young and resilient.
To be 24.
But bro is like, bro's off it. He's
Sounds
just
off it.
He's just off it, man.
He's got, you know.
I mean, if he's training, it kind of offsets.
No, it does not.
A little bit.
No, it absolutely does not.
How do you figure?
You go in the gym for an hour and a half, you're going to burn like 300 calories.
Right. It offsets some.
He ate a gallon of ice cream.
Yeah, it doesn't offset a gallon of ice cream.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Landon. I tried.
It's like 3,000 calories, maybe more. Probably more.
Probably more.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
more.
I mean, it's nothing but fat and sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
I was a
little bit
little
of
bummed
protein in
out
there.
to
A
hear
little bit
that
of protein.
walking a mile. Actually, how many calories do you think you burn just walking a mile?
Like 250.
100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You walk a little slow.
Yeah.
Got maybe double that pace. Yeah, like no, it's hard to burn calories. You know, your body's efficient. You regress into certain things, especially when you're talking about like low impact, steady state type of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like walking, jogging, even if your heart rate isn't like really getting up there, you're not going to be doing a whole lot. And I think people misunderstand, like when you're lifting weights, you're not losing fat because you're burning a ton of calories. You're losing fat because you're breaking your muscle down and it needs to be repaired. So you remain like, in that anabolic state for some period thereafter.
As your muscles are recovering, you need to burn calories to recover your muscles.
It's a process that like carries through. But
and
like
the more muscle you build, then the faster you burn fat. Is that true? I mean,
the leaner you are, the faster, or the greater the metabolic effect.
I actually just watched a pod where they were talking about burning body fat, and they were saying that, and I don't know what this is, but it's called HIIT intervals.
It's high impact interval training.
How that is more proficient at burning fat versus
high intensity interval training.
Versus doing like a lot of cardio, but not at a really like intense pace.
Yeah, starting and stopping is good, right?
Well, it's more efficient because you save time.
Yeah.
Right?
That's always nice.
Yeah, you.
That's what P90X3 is. It's very, but I mean, I'm just saying. I'm saying it's a lot of interval training.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's structured in a HIIT capacity, but like, it's not very high intensity.
Brian, this is him.
It's pretty high intensity.
Well,
for the average man, maybe not for you.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if you put it that way,
I'm saying like the easy comparison is Insanity is also on the Beachbody program.
You don't think Insanity is high intensity?
Insanity is very much high intensity.
Okay.
That is a HIIT workout.
Yeah.
P90X3 is.
You never even saw it or did it, so how do you know?
P90X3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
Have you?
Who do you think gave you the app?
No. Yeah, I know, but I'm not saying that you.
Yeah, I did them all.
You never did 3.
Yes, I did, and it was a fucking warm up. I did it because the yoga was only 30 minutes, and that was worth it to me. Because I don't ever want to do a minute more of yoga.
Because I'm doing P90X2 now, which they're mostly hour workouts, and yeah, it's an hour worth of yoga, but it is a much better yoga workout. Like you feel like
sure.
Yeah,
I'm just doing it to stretch and maintain some level of flexibility.
It is nice to
wait till you do the original. It's 90 fucking minutes.
I've done it. I've done it with you.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
90 minutes of yoga is like insufferable.
Well, like the last like 30 minutes is like all abs.
Yeah, that's kind of true.
Yeah.
Tortoise, when are you going to put your nipple picture up to kind of keep yourself
why don't you
accountable?
do it in the 75 hard streets? Hish is doing it.
I'm a 42-year-old
Shout out to
man.
Hish.
I don't need to be doing that. Let Berkey do that.
I actually
That's his
took a
thing.
picture myself too, January 1st, and I was like, man, do I really want to post this? Like, it's pretty bad.
Hey,
I might post the the finished product.
I'm the epitome right now of skinny fat.
Neither you. Listen, you don't just get to rest on your laurels because you get older. What if God
resting on my laurels?
Listen, God forbid Michelle just dies.
Jeez.
Then what?
Morbid.
Where are we going?
Well, she's not going to break up with you. I mean, you're a catch.
That's right.
But like, God forbid we lose Michelle in some capacity. What are you going to do? Can't just be schlubbing around in your little tortoise shell.
I'm out there doing P90X2, man.
You got to flex on them a little bit.
I'm out there. I'm out there getting strong.
Show me again.
That's the tortoise most muscular.
It reminded me of the little kid or the skinny kid in Little Giants.
Oh yeah.
So good.
So you think I'm skinny?
No, no, just the way you awkwardly tried to flex. All right, so we're talking about all of this because, as you saw in the lead of the show, we are going to be discussing goals, graphs, everything that was in 2023 and everything we hope to achieve in 2024. For me, like every year that passes, poker becomes a slightly lesser priority whenever it comes to like my purview of things I'm trying to improve the most on. And it's not that I'm not putting effort into poker. It's just that I think I've made it more defaulted, right? Like I know where to pocket in my hours of study. I know how to kind of simplify that process and ensure that like I'm studying the right things. And I also know like what's going to be asked of me from Solve for Why standpoint in order to create this sort of content and ensure that, I'm, I guess, like putting the best stuff out there, which means that I'm trained up to the ability to teach. So with that, then it just becomes a matter of like just showing up. It's like just make sure that you're good at what you do, that you're in the right mental state, and then you show up for 1,200 hours a year or whatever is allotted to you to play in these games, which means that I have to do the less desirable thing, which is actually put more of an emphasis on improving as a human being, which I got to tell you, sounds great in theory, but you know how much easier it is to just float along and just like not try. I mean, like, whenever push comes to shove, if I'm not saying that there's necessarily a larger pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if you mail it in as a human being, but man, you save a lot of fucking mental energy and existential crises. It's no fun getting in your own head.
Maybe you should just stay off of Twitter.
No, that's
Sorry, stay
that's
off of
where
X.
that's where we exercise the demons.
Oh, all right.
Guapo, you know, like whenever those existential crises start to really weigh on you, you're just like, I just don't know what my purpose is on Earth. I can find a nice distraction on a Twitter thread.
It's like your frustration room. Like I know some poker players like have rooms where they just go and like throw shit around and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your room.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not like. It's funny. Most of my life is very physical, but when it comes to like emotions, I'm not a very physical person. Like I don't have rage really building up inside of me. But man, do I love a good verbal sparring match.
Yeah, we know.
That's just
we know.
Yeah,
that's a good time for everybody, you know.
Yeah.
Onlookers and myself alike. So yeah, like the early part of this year, the emphasis for me will be completing 75 hard again. I want to try to get that before picture that
2.5 months, right?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah. That before picture that Guapo showed, that was day one. I'm roughly 225 pounds there, 220-ish at the lightest.
225. Wow.
Yeah,
big boy.
I went for it.
Get you on the Steelers.
What are you at right now, Tortoise?
What?
What are you at right now?
What do I weigh?
91.
Probably somewhere in that range. I was like pushing 200 at like probably before I started working out. So I'm sure I'm down some weight, but
I was at 188.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even have a scale. I don't
okay.
like maybe I should get one, but
not.
I don't think it's that important.
It doesn't matter all that much.
Right.
Like, my goal has nothing to do with what the weight that registers on the scale. Like
I think the weight will be a byproduct of working out, right? Like
like I'm 220, 225-ish. But like the eye test has me looking leaner. Like I'm probably 20%-ish body fat, but I think I'm like wearing it relatively well even in the before pictures.
Yeah.
So my goal is to get like sub 15, which I think is pretty attainable.
It's gonna be tough.
I don't think so.
Really?
No. I mean, I have so much excess weight. Like I usually walk at 190.
Are you changing your macros?
Yeah, I'm in a deficit. I'm eating somewhere between like, I would say on average I'm eating like 1,900 calories a day.
But are your actual macros like changing like percentage wise? Like
slightly. I'm foregoing fat a little bit for carbs, but like my protein's always high.
You're doing more carbs instead of fats.
Yeah, basically like when you're trying to maintain muscle, fat becomes a lot more important. So like if you're ever gonna consider a ketogenic diet, you want to be doing it at a time frame where you're kind of in a maintenance phase in your training and in your body composition and all that other stuff. When you're bulking, you don't really care. You just want to hit your protein mark. And when you're cutting, it's sort of the same. You really want to hit the protein mark, but the bigger thing is you also don't want to burn out because like you're at a deficit. So you need
the carbs.
The carbs become a lot more important, right? Like they're more efficient. You're able to just draw energy from them without much conversion, so you don't burn as many calories doing it. But yeah, I'm still like not high carb. I'm probably eating like 25% of my calories are carbs, maybe slightly less. I enjoy 75
like
hard.
50, 25, 25.
Yeah, maybe slightly less on the protein. I'm eating like 240 grams of protein at most. So some probably on average like 200. So it's like 800 calories of a 2K calorie diet. So like 40%, give or take. And then maybe half as many carbs. And then, somewhere around the rest being fat. Yeah. So like 40% fat, 35% fat, something like that. But yeah, like getting back into 75 hard, I forgot like how enjoyable it is. Mainly just because for me, it's just tracking metrics that I'm already kind of doing. Like it's a daily reminder to take the dogs for a walk, to get my outdoor workout, which I'm doing anyway, but I may not be like 7 days a week doing it.
Right.
And now this is a way to be accountable to myself, to the activity, whatever the case may be. Yeah. Like instead of saunaing when I feel like it, which ends up being maybe 3 to 5 days a week, now it's like mostly going to be every day. Especially if I don't walk the dogs, like it'll fill in my workout. Same thing with the gym. It's like, now
what is the daily requirements for this?
2
75 hours?
workouts. One is meant to be outside. 2 45-minute workouts. One's meant to be outside. Read 10 pages, which I substitute for listen to 10 minutes of audiobook. I just don't like to read. Create a diet and stick to it. So no cheating on whatever bounds you give. So like for me, it's just macros. I need to hit my protein goals and I need to hit my caloric goals. I'm not going to be overly concerned if I have a piece of dark chocolate or not, whatever, that doesn't matter. And then no alcohol and drink a gallon of water a day.
Okay.
What's the theory behind having the workout outside?
Just touching grass.
Yeah,
Okay.
just to get out, get some sun in your face.
Yeah, people are just like indoors sitting
Way too much.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like I'm pretty flexible with that kind of stuff. Like even if I was betting somebody to do this, I wouldn't really care if they did 2 workouts indoor versus out. I get the premise behind it, but like it's just more impressive to me to be consistent for 75 days.
Yeah.
Like I don't really care that much. Like Hish texted me yesterday. He goes, because he's doing it. He's like, "You count the sauna as a workout?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Why? Like explain to me." I'm like, "Was it hard to do it for 45 minutes?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "That's a fucking workout."
Yeah.
Like it's pretty close to cardio whenever you look at like how your heart rate fluctuates and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. Like for me, it doesn't really alter my daily routine much. It just adds some accountability and I really enjoy the process.
Yeah.
It also makes me be a lot more time efficient, which is important because I got to tell you, I'm not good at
I know.
Not too good at the juggling of time management.
No, yeah.
What about you guys? Do you have any specific? I know you're in a fat loss bet or weight loss bet, Guap.
So it's no bet this time.
It's just for you.
It's just,
Wow.
hey,
Just
I
for
want to
you.
like
What's
live
her name?
past, I don't know, 55 or 60.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Not only that, like I got this last year, I got very complacent. Like work was really good, poker was really well. Like
Way too many.
I was running
tortillas.
hot when in the terms of like life, right?
Right.
But I got really fucking lazy. I ate whatever I wanted. I was very stationary, doing a lot of editing, just like ordering Uber Eats,
Empanadas.
lots of empanadas, and it's just I need to stop being so lazy, and I just need to lose this weight.
All right. So what? Personally, like I'm not a goal guy. I think the process is infinitely better
Sure.
and more
The
important.
goal is to finish the thing. Like
Yeah.
to me, like my goal is to complete P90X2.
But if you
right.
all right, so
But
if
then-
if you do that and the next goal is to complete P90X1, like let's just say
Right.
that's the back-to-back goals.
Yeah.
What do you do after you've completed them both?
Right, exactly.
How does your
So-
mind?
Right. So like a lot of times what happens with me is I work out and I eat healthy and then I fall off and then I just like don't do anything for a
Right.
couple months and then so like the
yo-yo
goal
diet,
is to be
yeah.
more consistent, I guess. In general.
I'm similar to you in the sense that like I don't really create many goals for myself. I try to create processes.
Yeah.
But if I do have a tangible goal like 75 hard,
Right.
I try to have the next one already planned out. So I already know what I'm doing after 75 hard. Like I know that that's going to carry me into the spring, and I'm going to start my maintenance program to carry me through the World Series.
Right.
So I know where these phases like kind of fit into my life, and I understand that like I'll probably carry a maintenance through like August and then restart the bulk. I had a really successful bulk this time. Like I got so much stronger, noticeably, which I try to do. It's a weird thing because like bulking is so equated to being lazy, and there's so many lazy ways that you can do it and just put on the weight.
Yeah.
Just a dirty bulk.
Yeah, even if you do a clean bulk, like where you're just consuming excess calories, if you're not really training in a very mindful way to move some fucking weight and like really increase your volume in the gym, it's very easy to just like start packing on a bunch of fat and actually not building the muscle, the lean muscle underneath it that you hope to finally get to. This time, like, and I know I did it right because of the way I look at 225. Like I actually don't look as heavy as I'm carrying myself.
That's what I thought. When you said 225, I was like, damn, you don't look like what I would think you would look like at 225.
Right. So I'm excited to see what the cut down looks like because the last time I did 75 hard, I was like 195, maybe 198. And I didn't like, done some sort of bulking prior to it, but like not mindfully. And so when I leaned out, I got all the way down to 183, which was like my high school weight, and I was just skinny.
Yeah.
Body chemistry is just a weird thing. Like if you and I were to stand next to each other, I'm 6 feet tall as well, and I weigh nearly 35 pounds less than you. But if you looked at my body type and you looked at yours, you'd be like, oh, well, Guapo's
You're like 190.
clearly...
You're 190?
Yeah. Just from looking at my body, you'd be like, oh, well, Guapo's clearly fatter.
Yeah.
Like, it's just...
Oh, you are fatter.
Well, yeah. Thanks for that.
I'm just heavier.
Also, metrics wise, like I'm looking at a lot of metrics. I like numbers. I like graphs. That's what motivates me. If I can get the scale to say 160 anything within the next,
that's so
after
light
90
for
days,
for 6 foot tall.
Yeah, I want to get to 169. Like if I can get to 169 and get my body fat somewhere around like in the teens, like 17, 18.
You're looking to lose 20. You're looking to lose 20 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, what about like putting on muscle and these kind of things?
You
want to lose the weight first?
I want to just lose the weight. First, I just want to lose
Why?
the weight.
It's the opposite. It's easier to build when you're heavy.
Maybe it's a vanity thing, but aesthetically, like I just hate how fat I am right now.
Okay. Yeah, I get that.
You know what I mean?
Hey,
Like, it doesn't feel good. Like I'm walking around with a lot of excess weight. Like it's just not good.
When trend?
What's that?
When trend?
Yeah, I know. Trust me, I've thought about it.
Oh man, that's always the meme. All right, let's get into some of the results from 2023. Yesterday we posted a tweet that just basically said, "Show us your graphs." It seemed like an opportune time to kind of hear from the community, give you guys a little opportunity to brag, show us a little bit of what you did in 2023. I don't think we saw anything headed downward.
I was gonna say, I was like, nobody's gonna post their L.
Wasn't a lot of L's.
Right. Nobody just posts their L out there. Like,
definitely.
I lost Infinite this year.
Right. But there were.
You guys are out there. I know you're out there. Like, you can't hide.
They're all winners.
I guess you can't hide, but yeah.
There were a lot of straight up graphs, which you love to fucking see.
Literally straight to the moon.
Yeah, I got to tell you, love to see it. I think we can start with your graph actually, Tortoise.
So there's my graph, and this is a very
looks like a heart attack.
Low volume. Yeah, that's when the gas pains.
That's
kicked
when
in.
you were sitting at the
counter. Yeah. No, like this is probably 250 hours of play.
Okay.
Just 1, 2, and 2, 3. And so like when we talk about goals, like my goal really is to put in more volume and try to see what my run rate really is. And I don't know if you can ever really know, but last year I didn't play a lot of cash. I only started playing cash, in the fall. And so I didn't put in a lot of volume, and, there was some travel days in there. So like I didn't play as much as I wanted to. But I did win, and it was the first time I actually started grinding cash in years.
Yeah.
And I was playing a lot of tournaments, and to actually go and show up at the casino day in and day out and grind cash. So like it felt good getting back into it, but it felt like I needed to there was like a little bit of a relearning process of how live cash works.
Well, the big thing is I talked to Joanne about this. You guys may remember Mama Joe. We had her on an episode. But she was a former Academy attendee. Like we work hand in hand in a lot of projects. I help her with poker as much as I can. And she's like very good, very studied, like really gets the live dynamic, and at some deep sick level I think enjoys the grind. But I was talking to her about it, and it's like the frustrating thing, especially when you're in the when you're in the capped games. So anything that falls in the capped realm, 1-3 all the way up to 5-10.
Mostly mid stakes.
Yeah,
low to mid stakes.
When you're in that realm where, you're not really going to be swinging much more than a buy-in. When you zoom way out and look at the graph, like it's just going to be kind of like that climb of a buy-in at a time.
Right.
So your bad days are going to look like 2 or 3 buy-ins, like that you've lost in a day or something.
Well, no, that's kind of the thing. That's what I was explaining to her. Is like the
like pain. A real bad day is 2 buy-ins.
Well, no, it's not that. It's that the pain and the torture of showing up every single day and putting in 10 hours in order to make your $75 an hour comes with a lot a lot of hours where you're making $0.
Right.
It's so many hours of making $0 to then have a short stint where you just make like $800 an hour.
Yeah.
Over like 15 hours.
Right.
And then you just go back to making $0 for like 100 hours.
That's a very good description of what it, for me, what it felt like just in these 300 hours or whatever I've been playing, right? Where it's just like you'll win a bunch and then, or you might like just like run bad and lose a bunch, right?
Yeah,
so it's like you go on like 3 or 4 sessions. But it just comes in such waves. Yes, you go like you know, a week and you just can't lose, and you're just like piling chips, and then you'll go like 4 or 5 sessions and you just get cooled off, or you just lose, and there's like nothing you can do, and you're just like, I'm just losing today. And it's just like everything in between is where you make your win rate, it feels like. Yes,
100%. And well, that's the thing. You're making your win rate kind of like at the extremes, or I should say the extremes are attributing to what your true win rate is, but like most of it is like won and lost in the muck, right? Like,
yes, for sure. That's how it feels. It feels like when you're like winning like a lot, like you're just crushing it, you're running really good, right? And when you're losing and you're getting crushed, you're like running really bad. But like it's everything in between, and how much you win when you're winning, and how much you lose when you're losing, and all those little decisions that you make, these river payoffs, whatever it is, making the right betting sizes, finding the value. That's where all the difference becomes. Yeah,
so much of like what your bottom line will be attributed to is how lazy you get the closer you are to zero, right? And I specifically talk about this with regards to the capped games, because you know the vast majority of your sessions now are going to be like plus or minus 20 big blinds. And that's just not really meaningful to anybody, no matter what stakes you're playing. Like, even if you're playing, you know, 501K, winning or losing 20K at those stakes just is not, it's a non-event.
Yeah.
You know, it just like doesn't really matter. So when you're like recognizing this, especially the lower the stakes you get, because now 20 blinds represents very little actual practical money. Right? You're like, God, I just played 10 hours today at 1-3. And I made $60, right? And then you start to go compute. It's like $6 an hour, and I'm like working for less than minimum wage, yada yada yada, and it's not really representative of your true graph,
right? Yeah, you can't really look
zoomed in.
You can't look at that, right? You can't do that, right? Where you're like, I made $6 an hour today. Well, like, yeah, some days you're gonna make, you know, $500 an hour, and it's just like, well, that's not sustainable, but neither is the $6 an hour.
Right. The difficulty is that there's going to be a lot of $6 days strung together.
Yeah.
And I think like from my vantage point, what alleviates that is like when you do get to play uncapped games, right? So like a lot of my swings up and down are like plus or minus 20K.
Yeah.
Those aren't non-events. Like that's a significant amount of money. And it's a significant amount of big blinds. Like the standard deviations in the uncapped games are like 250 big blinds per 100. Where like in a capped game, it's like less than half of that. You know, it's like maybe a 9 max capped game is maybe like 100 big blinds per 100.
Yeah.
So like it's so vastly different where, you know, I just went on an 800-hour break-even stretch. But I just felt like throughout the entire 800 hours that I was just losing consistently or winning consistently. I'm like, man, I'm on this big downswing. I'm on like 350K downswing. And it's been going on for like 3 months. And I look at it and it's just like minus 15K, minus 18K, minus 21K.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're all reasonably small losses, because when you look at when you zoom out at the graph altogether, it's like every winning session is like plus 80K, plus 75K, plus 90K, plus 120. And then, you know, you have these big losses that offset. So like you just have like a minus 100K day. And then it's like small loss, small loss, small loss, small loss, small loss. And it just feels like you're losing always.
It's hard to keep it into perspective.
Yeah, it's very challenging. But it's easier whenever the money matters, right? What I was explaining to Mama Joe is like it's so fucking hard when you're playing for bill money and your daily swing is pocket change.
Yeah.
Right? because now it seems like there's no escape, and tournaments become so sexy because it's like, well, I could just play for 3 days and rip off a 100K score.
Yep.
That's my yearly take in cash, you know. And I think it's really difficult to just stay the course and show up day in and day out and just execute.
Yeah.
That I guess from my perspective of being a coach is probably the hardest thing to teach somebody. Like, either you got it or you don't. You know, you either have the sickness of like showing up with a smile on your face and taking pleasure in torturing people in other ways, or taking pleasure in making like plus EV decisions that didn't yield dollars, or you don't, right? Like, it's almost impossible to escape that hellscape that is small stakes without having like a long view approach.
Red chip hell.
This is actually such a loaded conversation. I think we'll talk about this in the future. What it actually takes to start playing full-time, meaning like your only income is to play full-time, and what your bankroll needs to look like, what your life roll needs to look like, what your mindset needs to look like. Like, it is incredibly tough, and I think people underestimate how much money you actually need to play even 2-5. And what kind of lifestyle you want to live. Are you going to have a car? Are you going to live with people? Are you going to live by yourself? Like, it's pretty steep.
I think there are some caveats to that, but like the general, without getting into the discussion, because I do think it's one we could have another day, the general I guess line in the sand that I would have is, do you have a nest egg? Like, if you have a nest egg, then you know you can take a shot. If you don't have a lot of money, then you better have a lot of fucking talent. Right. And I think that those are two very different conversations to have. If you're really rich in talent, then money isn't necessarily as big of a problem. If you're really rich in money, then talent can be curated. You know, they kind of play. It's when you lack both, but they just have a strong desire to do it. It's like, you're not ready yet.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like the biggest thing people miss.
Speaking of talent.
Yeah. How'd you
Holy
do?
shit.
Look at you.
Look at Guapo.
Wow.
Look at that sample size, guys.
Yeah, 100
Really,
hours?
Yeah. Really out there grinding.
25 sessions?
Why didn't you include your online graph?
Because I play on WSOP. Yeah.
Oh,
there's
no graph.
I really don't have...
There's no graph. You just see the account get bigger every day.
Well, you know, you could log your online
you can do it just the same as you do.
There.
Yeah. I used to do that.
Did you?
Then I just got too rich, you know, killing everybody at 100 NL. My goals are actually, I'll keep this really short. For poker wise, I want to try to put in at least 500 hours. I'm definitely working
live
a lot
or
more.
in general.
500 live.
I'll take the under.
I
will
too will take
whatever.
that.
I want to try
whatever
to
you
play
want to bet.
500
I'll
live.
bet.
It comes out to
whatever
40 hours every month. I'm working a lot more this year.
They're leaving
but
us.
I think I can do it. And then I have a magic number. I'd like to make somewhere between $30 to $40 an hour playing with Tortoise at 2-3. So when I come back from my little vacay,
well, the good news is, if you only play 500 hours, you could easily make like $120 an hour.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
You just run hot.
See, this is where he talks about how you can't make $30 an hour.
Well, you can't, but over 500 hours, you could definitely sun run.
And that's why I'm bringing up my boy, Senor Gomez.
Okay.
Yeah, Derek.
Speaking of sun run, shout out to Derek.
Fellow Academy attendee.
That's right. He is actually mashing it. This is all at 1-2-1-3, I believe.
1-2.
1-2.
Okay,
Just
strictly
1-2.
1-2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Half at the Jewel, half at Manly Bay, I think.
Game selecting, it matters, team. That graph is, so that's like what
it looks like an online graph, honestly.
Who's online graph?
Talk about up
like
only.
the killers, the guys that are playing like 6 tables. Like,
man.
Yeah, like that's that is a, I'm making 70 big blinds per hour.
He
or
is
per
all
100,
for
rather.
taking you up
I know
on
he's
your
trying
bet.
to steal
Bert.
my action.
Well, your action's never going to happen because it's going to take you 10 years to put in 1,000 hours.
What was the over under of hourly that I gave?
10.
$10.
$10?
Yeah.
Okay, he's gonna make more than $10.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it'd be, even if he regressed to the mean, it seems as though the mean is gonna be higher than $10. But I will say that with every, call it 1,000 hours that Derek puts in, I think that hourly continues to regress.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. Like I said, basically, I just don't think that this is a true hourly.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think it's a clear indicator
But you'd be
that
willing to spot him like $20 an hour. Like, that he could possibly make $20 an hour.
I don't know, because what I would take away from that graph is it's a large enough sample for me to think that he's one of the 5 best players in the pool. So like whatever the max win rate is at 1-2, I think Derek is
he'll
probably
be up there
in the top percentile.
Yeah, for sure.
Of attempting to do it.
But fellow academy attendee too. Let's not throw that.
Oh, Guapo threw it out there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's all right. You don't listen. It's fine.
That's right. I just want to make sure everyone heard.
We know the manager is putting his pants on. Speaking of one of our students, big shout out to Katie Marshall. She put her, I almost said chart, her graph in here. She said subbed to Solve for Why during the pandemic while playing in the Stars home game group. No regrets. 600 hours, mostly tournaments, all live. 2023. This is also like very straight up for an MTT player.
Yeah.
Like MTT players are usually the swingiest, where you just see the big spikes and the long falls. You know, with the exception of like Bin Wang.
Wow.
Usually what you'll see is like small decline, assuming that you don't just rip one off out of the beginning, and then you get a big score. And then you just steadily decline, and then you have a score, and then it's just this like rampant ascent to only slowly decline back to the mean.
GPI Player of the Year, right?
Who?
Ben Wynn.
Oh yeah,
I saw that.
You're right. That was just announced. I forgot about that. You know what that means? The awards are coming soon.
Oh, that's right.
The awards are coming soon.
And I can't wear the suit that I wore last year because I'm a fat piece of shit.
What, you think we're going to be nominated?
Yeah.
Come on.
Wow. Very presumptuous of you.
Guapo, how dare you, sir?
And by the way,
a lot of good podcasts out
I think
there.
it's like, even if, if we are nominated, be lucky enough to be nominated.
Right, yes.
I
just want to thank
the
the
awards
Academy.
are not. Yeah, I don't think the awards for like 3 months.
No, I remember them being at the beginning of the year, weren't they?
No, I think it's in March.
March. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You got time. You got
You
time.
do have time.
Slim down, baby.
That's right.
Yeah.
You better, because you're giving the speech if we win.
Yeah, okay.
You think I'm kidding? It's gonna be you and Conrad. What's popping? That would be where I slap him.
Dude, that would be so amazing. Oh, that would be
Save
so
it.
good.
Save it right for that moment.
awards.
Oh my God.
I just want to thank everybody, but pardon me 1 second. I have something to do.
You could gift that slap to Vertucci.
Oh no.
No,
That wouldn't go well.
That would be a fist fight for sure.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Moving on. How about Ray?
All right. Shout out to Ray. 2-3 cash and online MTTs paid off in the end. So I use this app also. I think the white line is MTTs. I know the blue line is cash for sure. And the yellow line, I believe, is total. But that doesn't, the yellow line doesn't make sense then because he wins in both cash and tournaments, but it looks like it drops his total.
It looks like the white and the blue are aligned with each other. So
No, the blue stops around 10K.
But I mean, for the most of the graph, it's like tracking exactly the same. So that can't be. It can't be cash and one can't be.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. You're right. Yellow is MTT.
There you go.
White is total.
That makes sense.
Yes,
that
yeah,
makes
yeah.
more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, it looks like he made around 10K in cash and around 13K or so, 14K in tournaments.
Nice.
Big
Half a
shout out to
Tesla.
Ray. What's
Half
up?
a Tesla.
Half a Tesla. Wow, they're going cheap these days. Back in my day, Teslas. Matthew Kagan, he said, I endured my worst downswing ever, but came out the other side before the Software Academy this month. So it looks like he's on his way out here.
Yep.
We're going to try to improve upon, I don't know if we can improve upon 9 big blinds per hour.
Oh, we can do it.
I mean, we'll get 8 to 10.
Yeah.
We'll get 8 to 10.
Maybe 12.
This is a pretty good win rate, but also sample.
Sample.
Shout out to
Maybe.
Lee Jones. He said, Happy New Year, gents. At Guapo, set specific goals for number of hours. A specific win rate make no sense because you can't control that. I agree. I think whenever you're setting goals, you should lean into volume-based goals because you can control that.
That's like what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking like I want to put in, maybe 1,000 hours.
Yeah.
And then we'll see where I end up.
Yeah.
Right. I want to improve on my game. Right. Study, play, and then at the end of the year, when we post these graphs again next year, hopefully we see up only.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lee also said, thinking poker one time. I every single year I campaign for Brocus to win the GPI award for podcast of the year. I think that they've done a fantastic job over there and don't get recognized enough.
For sure.
So I'll be doing that again this year. I do have to read this one thing from the chat before we get to this last chart. Jarns5 said, "Did I just spot a young tortoise on Mamoni's 2009 main event rail?"
Yeah.
You're goddamn right you did.
You definitely did.
I
was
damn
there.
right. We were there. FU15 was sleeping on our floor.
Oh, man.
Pete was in the office.
Man.
The story here is that Nick Mamoni, FU15, I think he got 15th in the main event that year.
Something like that.
He was literally like crashing at our place, sleeping on the floor. And one morning we had these like really high windows that, you know, they had no treatments on them. They were just there for natural light. And they were in the living room where Nick was sleeping. So around, 6:45-ish, whenever the sun would rise and get high enough in the sky that it would start peeking through, he would just wake up. And we had another roommate, Pete Riccozzi, who was sleeping in the office, which was like adjacent to the living room, but didn't have any windows. Was
dark. Mattress in the office.
No big deal. It was dark. He was able to get a good night's sleep. So Nick wakes up one morning, who knows what time, very early, I'm sure, and he's just laying on the couch, moaning, going, "Pete, Pete, what time is it, Pete?"
As if like he can't look himself.
So needless to say, he wasn't welcome back. After he made his deep run, we said, "Hey, time to go get a hotel."
He was rich then.
Yeah, he was real rich. Yeah, a lot of our little group went deep in the main around that time frame. Phil Collins final table in 2011. Ben Lamb, I believe, final table 2009.
Same.
Or didn't final table, sorry. He got like 14th.
He final tabled the same year as
and then made the final table with Phil in 2011. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they made it again a couple years back.
Yeah.
2017, I think. All right, let's get to these last graphs. Chevo says first year studying and tracking results, all 1-2 or 1-3, 2 sessions of 2-5, puts up 13,000. It's pretty good. We don't see the hours
like
here.
8 sessions.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
Well, how can you know?
Because how the points go.
Each point.
I don't understand how you made $13,000 at 1-2.
Yeah, like 9 sessions.
This is not. I don't know. This isn't adding up to me.
I mean, bro did good.
I mean, maybe it's an uncapped one.
It might be uncapped because it looks like he won 4,000 and 3,000.
This one's great.
Yes, but in yellow.
Oh, it's amazing.
Well done, Grant.
Sorry.
Nice job, Grant. There's always one in the group. Oh man. Well, congratulations to everybody out there who showed their graph.
Berkeys.
Dude, that is a long break. Even like that would drive me crazy.
Well, well, you have to look at it though. Like it's only
if Airball wasn't in there, you'd be down.
Yeah, it's only break even at the bookends.
Right.
Right. Like throughout the 800 hours, I did a lot of fucking swinging. It was a lot of ups and downs. Like I said, I went on multiple 300K downswings and multiple 300K upswings. But when you bookend it, like from hour 400 to hour 1200,
sure.
I made no money.
Yeah, looks like it's a beautiful mountain range.
Yeah, it's it's the other aspect that like I don't think people really understand or talk about that much. Like 800 hours live, it's a reasonable sample, but take that in comparison to get Derek, for example, right?
Sure.
He's played how many hours at 1-3? Like 5?
360.
He's like almost 400. Yeah.
Okay, so 400 hours, right? And he's just smashing it for an inconceivable amount of money. We'll go back to my graph.
Okay.
If you look at the first 400 hours of my graph, I made all of my money for the year.
Yeah.
So I made just shy of 10,000 big blinds in 400 hours.
Wow.
Right? So that's going to be what? 25 big blinds an hour?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of fucking, like that's an unsustainable win rate. Right?
And then you see.
And then you look at the 800 hours thereafter, and I made 0 big blinds per 100.
Right, and then it all evens out in the end.
Right, so like which of those is representative of my ability or in the game? Like if you zoomed into either one of those, you're going to make way different judgments of me as a player in the game.
Right.
Right? And the truth is neither of those win rates are sustainable.
Yeah.
You're
not going to break even forever, and you're not going to make 25 big blinds.
Right, they just average out, and I'm making 8 big blinds per hour, which is probably pretty reasonable and probably pretty sustainable.
Mm-hmm. How many hands do you see an hour playing live roughly?
It's tough to say because like the deeper the game, the slower it tends to be.
If you just had to give a rough estimate.
If I had to guess, I would say probably like 30.
30 per,
aggressive 30.
And you played how many hours last year?
like 1200-ish.
Oh, you played 1200.
Yeah.
I thought that was 8. Oh, you were saying
800-hour break-even stretch.
800-hour break-even. Gotcha. Yeah.
So yeah, you're looking at like 4,800 hands.
36,000.
Or sorry, I almost said 4,800. 48,000 I meant. No, it's
Man.
more than 36,000,
I
right?
did my math wrong.
It's times 4, not times 3.
You said 30 hands an hour?
Yeah, 30 hands an hour time. Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. I was doing 40 in my head.
Okay.
Right.
So
yeah, like 36,000.
that's crazy
36,000,
because online people say to really not give too much weight to your win rate until you hit about 100,000 hands.
Sure.
So,
But that's because you're getting in a ton of volume in the same pool over a short period of time.
Yeah.
Like time still matters. The variables change so drastically, right? Like my game won't look the same a year and a half from now.
Right.
Okay.
It'll be drastically different, but you know, a year and a half from now, I'm only going to get to play 50,000 hands.
Yeah.
With the group that I'm playing against now compared to the group that I'm playing against. And also there are like so many outlying factors, right? Like there's a big spike with airball. So it's like you just get to play a whale heads up for 50 hours and make, you know, a quarter of your win rate for the, or half of your win rate, or, you know, 2/3 of your win rate even.
Yeah.
It just, you never know, but like these outlier events are big byproducts of like what your bottom line looks like at the end of the year.
Yeah. I feel like when you're like playing the stakes that Guapo and I are playing, those outlier events are very, very far and few in between. Right? Like it's like when I show up to the Jewel, or you know, you go down on the strip and you're playing, you know, 1-3, 2-5. I mean, yeah, occasionally you might have some like maniac come in and spew off like 10 buy-ins.
It's funny. I don't want to cut you off, but Derek particularly likes to go play really late at night because he's looking for those guys that are just coming out of the club, the guys that are just like super wasted.
Just want to just dump off a bunch of money. Right. I mean, yeah, that's probably, you have the ability to do that. Like I'm never going to be playing.
The outliers are slightly less important at those stakes because everybody's an outlier. Like they're also bad.
Yeah.
They're also bad in so many different ways. And that's kind of the catch-22 is that it's difficult to create a general strategy that maximizes your win rate versus each individual and their weaknesses.
Yeah.
But at the same token, like it's also tough to just go in and execute a theoretical strategy, which in, you know, theory should just kind of shear everybody over the long run.
Yeah.
Because you see what's happening. Right, there are just so many points where like deviating is just worth a lot more.
Yeah, like I'm very curious, like because I think in my head I think I know what my win rate is, but you can never really know. And I mean, so that's like, I guess you think like 1,000 hours is a good sample size.
I think
right, because I would like
500
to know, like,
starts to do a good job with thousands.
Yeah, like after 500, after 1,000 hours, I would like to see like, okay, where am I at?
Yeah,
like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the big thing to just bear in mind is like you can have these very long break-even stretches.
Yeah,
so it's like you want to be able to play long enough to allow that to flesh out.
Right.
And then kind of like revisit and say like, okay, well, what's my true winner? Because like after 400 hours this year, it's like, well, I know that I'm not winning 30 big blinds per 100.
Right.
Like I just know that that's not accurate. So what am I going to regress to? Like what's a reasonable number?
Even you're not arrogant enough to think.
Right. Right. That's very fair.
I think I'm going to start my own staking stable at 1-2 and 1-3, and I'm going to see how that works out. I'm going to be the JMO of the 1-2, 1-3.
Well, before we get to all that and me talk you out of it, let's talk a little bit about Pad's reaction to some of the responses of the current online ecosystem. I think this dovetails nicely with the conversation that we had yesterday about GG and the hacking that took place. So it's going to be a short video we're going to play for you real quick.
Good. But this is a tough conversation for amateur poker players and professional poker players. We need to stop playing on all of these sites. It's a joke. The amount of cheating which has been going on and the amount of respect that we get back from the sites and from the ambassadors is just a joke. Like, we always see the ambassadors, hey, sign up to this site. Oh, yeah, play on this site. They put their face on the site. They put their referral link. They do whatever. They post, they retweet. And then we get cheated out of millions and we hear nothing. Crickets. Like, it's so disrespectful. You know, and of course, but, you know, like, they wouldn't get their paycheck if they come out against the sites or say anything or talk about it. Then don't take the fucking paycheck. You know, we're your fucking friends, your colleagues, your peers. And you ambassador for a site, if the site is cheating us out of 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, whatever the millions is, we turn up every day on the site you tell us to play on, we register, we pay all the rake, and we get cheated and we hear nothing. Nothing. We don't hear anything. It's like, oh yeah, nothing. No tweets this week, no tweets next week. Oh, like, have you seen my YouTube video? Oh, have you seen this or this going on? Oh, I'm at this like spa retreat. Fuck the spa retreat. Fuck your YouTube video. Fuck everything else. We're getting cheated out of millions. Where the fuck is our millions coming back from, you know? It's fine to close down 50 accounts and do all this stuff, but where's the money going? You know, if you say, oh, well, they withdrew the money, that's not our problem. That's your problem. You're offering a game for us. We are playing there because you say, come and play there. If you haven't invested in a big enough security team and you've spent money doing X promotion or Y promotion, then work it out. Work it out. Work out where this money's going and give it back to us, because it's our money. They've not stolen it from you. They've stolen it from us. If you pay us back the money, they've stolen it from you. But if you don't pay us back this millions of money, then they've stolen it from us. So we've had millions of dollars stolen from us. Our ambassadors don't say anything. We don't hear anything. They're like, oh, you know, bro, can't say anything. It's in my contract. Fucking rip the contract up and throw it away then, you know? Because do you really want to represent a side or sites like this where your peers are getting fucked? You sit like opposite us at the poker table in these live tournaments, smiling, we're best friends. But where the fuck's our money? It's gone, you know? And it's just not... It's insane. And if we keep playing on all of these sites, then what's the fucking point? Of course, people will keep doing the same. If we don't change it, then nothing will change it. So this is a tough conversation for myself, I guess.
That he's willing to kind of come out and say this type of stuff. I don't think people understand necessarily how much those of us that are willing to talk cut off our nose to spite our face.
Yeah.
Like, no one's throwing free money at the person who's outspoken against the industry as a whole whenever they're not acting in the best manner for the consumer. Do you think that video was a shot at anyone in particular?
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm glad he wasn't specific because it doesn't help him to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole online landscape has its own problems. I'm just curious if that were directed more specifically towards like ACR or GG.
I was thinking ACR.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I was thinking GG.
Well, GG's most recent, and I was thinking it seemed as though he was kind of like speaking a little bit about Negreanu there at different parts, but I think that I could see where it like leans a little bit more towards ACR because there's so much shilling that takes place
right
by their pros, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. Like you're meant to kind of, I guess, like be the go-between between the figureheads at the company and the community at large. And for what it's worth, like, look, does Daniel deserve some shit for being in a position that he's in, representing a site that just had a big hacking scandal? 100%. But has he done pretty well by the community throughout his career? Yeah. I would argue yes.
For sure.
You know, so it's like, I'll never say that like anyone necessarily deserves a pass, but I do think that it's tough to just say, like, if the site isn't doing right by your standards, then just walk. It's a really powerful thing to do, right? Like Ike did it with Stars, mm-hmm. where he was the first one to kind of defect, where he was like, I don't like what you guys are doing with the Supernova Elite thing. I'm fucking out, and I'm going to be public about it. And the irony is that like he gets bashed more than anybody because, you know, he fucking wears a mask and like, you know, doesn't necessarily align socially with everybody else. But I think that like that's a really difficult and noble thing to do when you're getting a lot of money. Now, Ike does really well for himself, and he was independently pretty well off just from winning at poker, which is good. And you could probably say the same about a lot of the other ambassadors too. It is very strange to me that GG didn't make a more conscientious effort to message through their ambassadors, right? Because of all the sites that I guess have spokespeople for them, I think that we trust the GG ambassadors more than most. I don't know if Fedor is still involved there or not, but like he was at one point, a part of the company and to a large degree a face of the company. Obviously, Dean Eggs is absolutely the face of the company. You have guys like Elke who have been around forever, former Stars representative like Daniel. I'm trying to think of like
Jason Kuhn's.
Right, Kuhn is a part of that, and also part of the Integrity Council that was formed during the Jake and Ali cheating scandal. And I think that that's more of the bigger point that I want to touch on here from the Pads video, because whatever, like that was a fun thing for us to talk about, like, oh, who is he implying and like what site? But the larger problem at hand, and one that we so quickly move on from because we forget about it instantaneously because the news cycle churns and something else occurs. But he's talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars. And if you're one of the operators, you're going to say, well, point to it. Where are these millions of dollars coming from, right? Because we just caught a hacker who only took $75,000 and we refunded it, that kind of thing. Or, in more recent history, like Project Baby on Global, like who knows how much he took, but like we issued refunds and we think it was fair, that type of stuff. Go back to the timeline. We've only been a podcast for 2 years, less. It'll be less. 2 years in March, right?
Right.
So just shy of 24 months, like 22 months-ish, 21 months. And we've covered the Ali cheating scandal, the Jake Schindler cheating scandal, both RTAing.
RJL.
The Robbie J. Lou, we don't know what the fuck was happening there, but like, something occurred. And granted, that was in the live realm, so it's a little bit less important to this convo. But we covered Jake and Ali. We covered the suspicion with Bryn and ghosting and multi-accounting. That's obviously a very big deal. We covered all of the stuff that the GTO Wizard Fair Play Check uncovered, which was a lot of maybe loose RTAing. The reemergence of Ali on ACR doing the same multi-accounting RTAing type of bit. The most recent hacking. There were some other instances throughout the last year and a half that were covered on ACR. Prior to us launching this podcast, there was the Fedor Cruz thing. This is all within like a 2-year time span.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like when we start to add up all of that money that was taken, who knows how many millions of dollars a guy like
in the
Ali
past.
was able to get, right? And then we start talking about all of the cheating and nefarious activity that maybe goes undetected, right? That's even more money. I think the most poignant point, or the most pointed point that Pad's made here is that they're not stealing this money from the site. They're stealing it from the consumer.
Right.
Right? Until the site makes good on every penny that is that's been taken in an unfair way, then it just boils down to your customers are constantly at risk.
Right. Yeah, they're not stealing rake.
Right. And that's a really hard thing to get over. Right? When you start to frame it that way, it's like, why on earth are we fucking doing business here?
Yeah.
Right? We make fun of the people who constantly go to home games and then get cheated. Like, it's a meme on here.
Right.
We literally meme about it. Like the Wesley thing, the airball thing, like, we cover it as honestly as we can, but at the end of the day, it always just boils back down to like, well, you're an idiot. You went to a fucking game that was clearly going to get cheated at some point in some capacity, and you knew what you were getting yourself. And we always just say like, well, buyer beware. Like this falls on you. It's your responsibility because there are legalized casinos that won't cheat you, right? But what happens when the legalized casino does cheat you?
Yeah.
And not the entity itself, but the people who are involved in it. Because that's currently what's happening online, right? So I think Pad's message is like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Why do we show up and keep paying rake?
Right.
And it's tough because none of us in a position to message to the community at large want to incentivize an entire ecosystem to collapse. Nothing good comes from that.
No.
The game doesn't grow.
We want to see online thrive.
Right.
But we want it to be safe. We want everyone to know when they log in and sit down at the table that they're not going to be cheated. They're going to be able to play a fair game. They're going to let their skills determine whether they win or lose.
Right.
And some luck.
Yeah, of course. But, you know, it doesn't benefit anyone for the game to get smaller.
Yeah.
And certainly losing a large arm of the ecosystem is only going to shrink the game. Like the same as it would if we outlawed tournaments tomorrow, right? If we said no more live tournaments ever. Poker doesn't grow. It shrinks.
Yeah.
For sure, it shrinks. Like the barrier of entry just gets much higher, and you know, suddenly like people just stop showing up. It's not fun anymore. There's a bigger commitment to it, yada yada yada. So I think that like Pads is almost sending this message out of desperation, right? Like he recently announced that he's bringing BitB staking back. He wants to be a stable manager again. He wants to help grow the game from that side. And again, when we're talking about the economics of things, like stables are so critical to the online landscape. There just really isn't these prize pools in the online MTTs without these stables. But there's a host of problems that come from these stables as well. And I'm not inferring anything about BitB, but just in a general sense, like we don't know which of these stables are operating, you know, by a strict code versus, you know, card sharing versus chip dumping. Yeah, I mean, sorry, you're right because we're just speculating, right? We don't know what's happening. We just know what's available to happen. They could all be in the same room together. There could be ghosting that takes place. Like there's so much that's difficult to police. But along the same lines, these prize pools just do not exist without these staking houses, right? Yeah. So where do we go to from here, right? Everybody's interests are aligned in cleaning up the community and ensuring that online is a safe place for us to gamble. But currently, in its 2024 state, especially being segregated between apps and regulated sites and then unregulated sites, it just feels so much more wild, wild west than it may have even been in 2003.
Which is insane. I mean, I'm sure there was tons of cheating going on back then too.
It was so much less sophisticated.
It was less sophisticated, but it just probably a lot of it went undetected.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this is born out of the sophistication of the game. The game has matured.
Yeah, there was no such
so
thing as
more.
RTAing back then.
Right, and ghosting was not that important because everybody was stupid.
Yeah.
You know, so you have a bad player getting ghosted by a bad player, like whatever. Like a lot of it's just going to be variance.
Yeah.
But now it's so different. We have so much power at our fingertips.
Yeah.
You know, like Landon's kind of been watching these Poker Go final tables and like every hand blunder. It's like, well, yeah, man, you have fucking HRC right in front of you. You can, but they're in game. They don't have that available to them, you know? So it like demonstrates how powerful these tools fucking are.
Right.
When you look at like a guy like Bonomo, who's one of the best, he's so established and so accomplished, and then he makes a 3K error at the final table, right? And like Landon can identify that in 30 seconds because he has the sim right fucking in front of him.
Right.
So imagine if you didn't actually have to make the decision in real time like Bonomo is.
It's just there for you.
But instead somebody just feeds it to you.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, how could anyone not profit in those regards?
Right.
And I don't know if this is just a security thing. I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I don't know like where the operators stand as far as like helping to make this better. But I think from our perspective and the message that Pads is getting out there is like, we just want to be more in the know. You know, we just want to be more involved in all of this. We want to have a better understanding of where this fucking money's going. So you're banning all these accounts. You found 100 bots and you banned them all. Where'd all the money go that they stole? You know, where are the refunds? How can a botting ring exist for X amount of days, months, years, and I, as a person who played in this pool regularly, get, you know, a few $100s back as a refund? Well, that can't possibly be what their win rate was.
Not at all.
You know, like it should be, I'm sure they're winning as much, if not more than rake. So how am I getting less than what my rake back would be? That doesn't make any fucking sense. Stars was like the one site that really did a great job about this, at least in the early parts of post Black Friday. We saw a lot of money getting pushed back, like via people getting banned. Now, granted, they might have been a little trigger happy with the bans. Like they banned Schindler, they banned I can never remember his name. Starts with a V. He got second in the main event. Man, It's escaping me right now. But anyway, they banned him after winning like a scoop for 750K. And both of these were just because they were VPNing. They weren't even doing anything to give themselves an edge.
Right.
They were just allowing themselves to play.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, to have like 750K redistributed amongst the prize pool because that person's been gone. And, you know, they froze the money. Like they didn't allow it to be laundered out or whatever the case may be. As far as I understand, they did a good job. But like, I think Pad's point is very crucial in understanding that like when millions of dollars are being taken from the community through bad actors, it has to fall. It's like some responsibility has to fall on the operator, right? And maybe we shouldn't be absolved completely as customers.
No, right.
Maybe it's like we knew what we were getting ourselves into.
Yeah, we're putting ourselves in that position to get cheated.
Right. But maybe that just only applies to people who are playing on apps. Because there is no real security or regulation there.
Right.
You know, you're definitely...
You know, like...
That's like going to a home game.
Right. I feel like anybody that logs in and plays on these apps is like already knows the inherent risk that they're taking just by playing.
Or they're willfully ignorant, whatever.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. But like, you're right. That to me is like going to a home game.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you get cheated on... you know, a major site like GG or Stars or ACR or whatever, that's like showing up to the Bellagio and finding out that like somebody's been cheating your game.
When you're
for
in a home game and you're in an app, you know that the possibility of getting cheated is much greater than it is if you use these other outlets.
Yeah, so really, really passionate speech there by Pads. I don't know if it's going to impart any change moving forward. I do know that people will see it though. And I think that that's important. I think it does spark the conversation, which I also think is very important. Where it goes to from here, I have no clue, man.
Nice to see a tough combo back in the mix, you know?
Yeah. Shout out to Jaffe. He's doing the Lord's work, letting people just borrow his bit.
Yep.
All right, let's wrap this up with the JMO thread. This could very easily devolve into a very long conversation, but that's not really the intention that I have with it. I just kind of want to speak on his experience and then talk a little bit about what I think he kind of nails and then areas where I think maybe there's a little bit of discretion that could be used. So in essence, he kind of just like put himself out there to test some shit. Oh, wait, we still have an In the Muck to get to too. So sorry, this isn't what we're going to wrap on. Yeah. My bad. You guys are in for a treat. Okay, so basically he bought around 4 million in action over the course of the year, both in MTTs as well as cash games ranging from 2550 to 1K, 2K. And most of the points that he makes here that I think are the best to consider and the most valid are that the community, especially the buyer's market and the seller's market, is very insulated. So the best buys are going to be done privately. Now, this may be done in mass through like there are some, for lack of a better word, markets out there. Like there are a lot of Telegram groups and things of that nature, very similar to crypto, right? Like a lot of peer-to-peer money exchanges are done through these like groups where one person needs, one person is selling whatever, and they just do exchanges, right? Same thing kind of happens with action buying, and it's very insulated to a small group of people. Like the majority of the high rollers are just backed by a very small collective. It's almost like fantasy sports to them. Maybe a half dozen or a dozen guys are managing like 30 or 40 high rollers and kind of just divvying them up amongst each other, and then taking whatever percent of the profits they're ultimately buying when it's said and done. And basically what he was saying is that he's not super networked, so he wasn't privy to a lot of those good buys. And what ultimately happened was he was forced to buy publicly. Now, despite the fact that he showed a pretty good return, making about 125% ROI, he said that he got really lucky along the way and would actually have just shorted almost all of the action that was posted live. I think that that's reasonable, and I think that there is a demand for that. One in which Mike McDonald actually used to meet with poker shares. The issue is that, and this is where I kind of take or want to give a little bit of pushback to JMO's thread, is that nobody's anywhere close to as sharp as they think they are on either side, right? So I think a lot of people are selling at a rate that they're probably not beating, and most of them are probably ignorant to the fact that they're not beating that rate. But I also think that, like, from the seller side, or like from JMO's perspective, you're nowhere near as sharp as you think when it comes to shorting, right? So the amount of volume you'd have to put in is so excessive, and it's so difficult to actually accumulate.
Right.
I think better ways to short are like what Brewer did with the main event, where you just take a flat bet and allow people to choose 50 players. Or you take like some sort of crossbook where they take X amount of players and you offer them Y amount of markup on that. And then you crossbook a small percentage of that, whatever the case may be. But basically, like, creating volume through the amount of people that you're shorting rather than the amount of events, because it's just difficult. You're not going to really understand what somebody's true ROI is in a Florida 3,500 main event. Where, you know, there are a bunch of retirees just giving it away. It's easy to say that the best in the field are winning at 300%. It's also very easy to say that it's capped at like 50%.
Yeah.
We just don't know. And the more like lost we are on what the ceiling win rate is, the greater the margin of error, right? So like with high rollers, there isn't really a lot of room for margin of error. And in that regard, I understand what he's saying. Like, when people are selling for high rollers, if they're off by like 1%, that's pretty significant, because there isn't a lot of win rate available. Yeah. You know, almost everybody who signs up outside of the recreationals looks as though they could be winning in the field, because they are probably pretty good at fucking poker. The issue is that the losers in the field, the obvious losers in the field, the recreationals, let's say they're losing it, you know, minus 25% ROI on the aggregate. The issue is that, like, if we're talking about a 50 player field where there are, call it 10 recreationals, right? And of those 10, they're losing, you know, collectively on average 25 buy-ins, something along those lines, right? Or sorry, it would be less. They're losing 25%. So they're actually losing like 2.5 buy-ins on their 10. Most of that's getting sucked up by the top, the people who have the biggest win rate. So it's not evenly distributed amongst the field. You can't say that, like, oh, well, there's 10 soft spots in this, so if you're a winning poker player, you're winning in this event.
Right.
That's not the way that it works. The best players in that field are now maybe making like 25% ROI or 30% ROI. Who knows? Instead of their usual 15% in a tough field where there's no recs or 20, whatever, right? So there is this element of when you're closer to the break-even point, or when your win rate is more dependent upon the recs than anything else, it's very clear that being off by even a little bit is very negative EV to the buyer. So if you have a win rate of 5% ROI and you sell at 1.05, there's no meat on the bone for the buyer, right? But on the surface, it can be very easy to look at somebody and say, like, he's very good, he's studied, he's definitely winning in this field. 1.05 looks yummy to me. It looks fine, right? But you actually just might be losing because maybe he overestimated. Maybe he only has a 4% ROI. And we're splitting hairs here, but the point is there's no room for error. And this is, I think, what JMO's really speaking to, is that when the edges are really low, there's no margin of error, and you can just absolutely be getting scalped. You know, you could be losing like 50 cents on the dollar if somebody's charging 1.1 and they're actually a break-even player or a slight loser in the field. You know what I mean? Like, you could just actually be getting crushed in this particular spot. Whereas if somebody's charging 1.2 to an open field 1K, where first is going to be 1,500 buy-ins, and their actual ROI is break-even, whatever. You know, it's a rounding error at that point.
Yeah.
And, you know, the clear difference here is, like, that's a big, there's a big gap between break even and selling at 1.1. But because the margin of error is so wide and we have so much room for error, it's not noticed as much from the buy side. as it would be if you buy somebody at like 1.05 and they're actually break even, right? Or even like just winning small. You kind of just get crushed there because the variance in a tough field is going to be it's going to be very present. The variance in a soft field is obviously going to be present too, but you get the high side, right? You get this reward where you actually pick the sun runner and they just win 1,500 buy-ins. You get to 1,500x your investment where like you're just capped in a high roller. You're going to 10x at most.
Yeah.
And if you bought a loser, like that may never happen. They just may never win.
I had little experience with this year. So like I had never like sold action publicly until this year. But like, and I did sell at a markup, and of course you're gonna have people in the comments saying like, you're a recreational player, how are you selling markup? Now I probably could have sold at a even higher markup at 1.2 or 1.25 or whatever. I end up selling like a package this summer at 1.15, and I literally like legitimately thought like that's what it's worth.
Yeah.
And I didn't like.
What did you sell that? Sorry.
1.15.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was very particular in the events that I chose. Like, so I did pick these very high valued small buy-in tournaments, right? I wasn't playing like 5Ks and 3Ks, right? I was playing the Gladiator, and I was playing the Colossus, and I was playing the Millionaire Maker, ones where it's going to be filled with recreationals, and it's 1,500 buy-ins to first, right? So I think like your point is yeah, in those situations, I think that it can be fair to sell at that price if you think that's what you're worth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, like nobody really knows.
Right,
so
exactly.
Because of the fields that you're selling to, it's more so like basically when you're selling at 1.15 into like these big open fields, you're just asking the people buying, like, do you think I'm winning?
Right, exactly.
Right? Like in your best estimation, do you think I'm winning? Now, when you start selling higher, like 1.25, 1.3, 1.4, they have to be a lot more critical.
Of course.
And the truth of the matter is, now it sways in a direction where it's like, and maybe this is true of like the high roller scene too, but probably not. But like the face, the people who are selling at face are probably like some of the best buys in the high roller that are available public.
Yeah.
Just like the people who are selling like 1.1 and below in these large fields, they're probably the best gamble, not because they're top third of the field by any stretch, but because the margin of error between what they're actually winning and what they're selling at is probably relatively low. Whereas like if you take somebody who believes themselves to be in the top 10% of the field and they're selling at like 1.4, we don't even know that like 50% ROI is available.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like it's just very difficult now. You're operating on such slim margins that it becomes really challenging. Now, all of that being said, the other point that he kind of makes is like the best friend to every poker player is having a network. And these networks like should really be leaning on one another and just like printing money off of each other. Right. Because like you'll negotiate fairer markup that way because you don't want to gouge your friends ever. And friends also want to be helpful. So they're willing to pay some sort of markup and tax along the way. But basically like if you believe in one another and you're good at the game, then you're naturally going to make each other slightly more wealthy. And I think that that's relatively true. But I think what's missing from all of that is that collectively poker players just aren't nearly as liquid as outside investors.
Right.
So you still have to have that whale, and I don't mean whale in the sense of like a bad player. I mean whale in the sense of like what we would see in crypto, like the guy who's able to just sweep the floor on stuff. Right. You still need that guy who's like really dense with liquidity that believes in you. You need him to be a part of your network as well. Right. And that's the only way that you truly get insulated. So I do think it's kind of like unfair to throw shots at people who are kind of on the come up that maybe have already like leaned pretty hard on their network to get to where they are. It's a big ask to then have that network also like propel them to the next level and the next level and the next level, right? It doesn't always make a lot of sense. So I think like, putting yourself out there to sell publicly, it's a scary thing. Yeah. But if you're being fair about it, I do think that there are probably some good buys. I do agree with like what he largely said and what was echoed by Derek Walters, that being a part of these networks, especially if you have liquidity and the availability to kind of get in the mix and be a big buyer, there's a lot of money to be made for sure. And I guess the last point, which was one that you were kind of touching on, where you were saying you could sell higher, is the notion of like leveraging celebrity,
right,
for a higher markup.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
I'm confused. Does this mean I should or I shouldn't start my stable of 1-3 guys?
You should not. I thought we've been over this. It's it's terrible.
All right.
Unless your stable includes Derek and I, then you'll be all right.
I think Derek's rolled. He's okay.
You're just gonna get stolen from is the problem. 1-3 players need to eat. But yeah, I think that when it comes to like leveraging celebrity and stuff like that, it's gray. It's just super gray because you're not necessarily doing anything morally unethical. It's like selling. I hate this comparison, but like Nikki made it yesterday, and I think it's kind of okay. It's like selling a T-shirt at 20x markup. Mm-hmm. Like the T-shirt costs you $12 to print. You're selling it for $100, and people are buying it because they're big fans of yours.
Yeah.
Like where does the line? I don't know. And I guess maybe it's just one of two things. Either people market it as a gamble and don't imply that they're winning at whatever it is that they're selling at, or they just allow themselves to be scrutinized publicly. Mm-hmm. Either or, I think, is fine.
Yeah.
But in either regard, I think that it's very fair for these types of public things to be commented on. And I think that's something that people don't understand about Twitter. They think that they could just use the app anonymously with their name attached and, kind of speak very candidly about whatever it is that they want to talk about. And then when they get criticized, it's like, why aren't you talking to me privately instead? Why are you calling me out? Especially like me as somebody who has like a bigger platform. There's this notion of like being very mindful of like what I am willing to call out in a public space, what I'm amplifying, that type of stuff. But I think it's a really unfair expectation to kind of just like speak off the cuff, say something that deserves criticism, and then get upset when it gets criticized publicly, right? Like that's just the nature of the app. If you're going to do business in the public space, then expect people to, kind of like have a scrutinizing eye whenever it comes to whatever it is that you're putting out there. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting conversation. I think it's one that I would love to get JMO and maybe some other big piece buyers like Derek Walters. I guess he does it a little bit less now, but people who run stables, Nick Howard would be another good example. Maybe get like a panel of guys to come on and give their experience, because personally, like I'm not a big action buyer. I never have been. And it's largely because I don't think I'm super good at gauging prices. So I'm just gambling.
Yeah.
And it's like throughout my career, I've done really well and gotten very lucky, but that's just because I've been fortunate enough, like they said, to have winning friends. And so like I was first in line to scoop a piece. Maybe I even overpaid at some points along the way, but like I also have a pretty good comprehension of like what their skill set is. So, you can't really be taking too much of the worst of it. Whereas like any public action that I've ever bought, like I used to buy a lot of main event action just to have board coverage. I'd have like 150 people in the main. Not at 10K each, just like small pieces, 1 to 5%, whatever. You could just get exposure. It's kind of like doing a best ball draft,
Right.
You just realize like everybody's just fucking ripping you off. Like when we used to do it, I would have Chin like scout up and coming like mid stakes players and whatnot, because we could always get them for like 1.1, 1.2. When you start paying like 1.4 plus,
yeah,
it's just getting crushed.
Yeah.
It was around the same time that like I remember LaPlante was selling it like 2.0 and was under some scrutiny, was like heavily defending it. And it was just like, maybe it was a good buy, maybe it wasn't, but I don't know and I don't care because there just isn't enough meat on the bone. But at the same token, like the guy that you're paying 1.1 for is probably never going to win. And you really do want to have a piece of the guy who can ultimately come down to the wire and win it. So yeah, I don't know. It's a really tricky landscape, one that I'm not super sharp on, but I do find it to be an interesting convo.
Sure.
All right. Let's
really
wrap
quick,
this up.
we had a question about markup, how that works.
Okay. What is
You
it?
just wanted to explain that.
Oh, how markup works?
Yeah.
So essentially, the way that traditional tournament markup works is that you charge a percentage based off of what your expectation is in the event. So effectively you're charging a premium, right? It's similar to, I guess it would be similar to like an angel investor in the startup world, where you have this product and currently it is sold X amount of dollars. You're charging like 0.5x more, so 50% markup or whatever, in order for somebody to invest at this point. So you already have something that's established. You have an expectation that it's going to grow 20x in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And you're willing to let somebody come in at a 50% markup right now. So they're paying a bit of a premium for future earnings.
Yeah. So like in like, let's say like the main event, if I think my ROI is 15%, then I sell at 1.15. So if they wanted 1%, which is at face is worth $100, they would pay $115.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, basically you're just paying an excess amount. You're allowing the player to secure some of his win rate up front.
Right.
Most people aren't. Well, let me rephrase. Most good buys won't be selling at what their true ROI is. Right. So if your true ROI is like 15%, you're not going to sell at 1.1. Yeah. You're going to leave some meat on the bone for the backer.
Right.
Of course. All right. Let's get into this in the muck. We have a user submission today. So yeah, go ahead and roll the clip.
Do I have that? I'm sorry.
You always do. The intro?
Oh.
One job, Guapo. One job. All right, so this is a tournament hand. I'm not really sure what online site it came from. It looks like it's a European site, though. And it seems to be somewhere, I don't know what the structure is, but it seems to be somewhere in the early to mid stages. There are about 85 big blinds effective. You can actually click on the stack size and it will convert it to big blinds go up. But this is an interesting spot we're going to take a look at. I'm not the MTT pro, so bear with me. I'm not going to give you quite the Matt Hunt analysis, but I'll happily give you what I believe happens for chips. I don't know what stage of the event they're in, so I'm going to assume there isn't much, if any, ICM. I imagine more than half the field exists. We're going to see a hijack open to 2 big blinds. The cutoff is going to fold. The button will 3-bet to 7 big blinds, give or take. We're going to go heads up to a flop.
Good flop.
Queen 8-6, 2 clubs. We have queens with the queen of clubs. Pretty fucking good spot.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm going to explain for him since he's not here to do it for on his own behalf. This is going to be a
25%?
No, it's a big bet board.
Really? I thought it was.
Yeah, no. Look at all those draws out there.
Well, it's a
Gut shots.
You have the queen of clubs.
when
Sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Go.
You guys are fine. You're both right, sort of. Two-tone boards don't go as big, so rainbow boards will go slightly larger. And there's enough of a disconnect here where like you're not going to really B75 much. Basically, you're going to mix between, in my opinion, like if you have a 2 sizing strat here, it's going to be like B40, B66.
Yeah.
This is like mostly what I saw happening whenever I was studying for airball. But I think you can just single size here and just choose B40, which he does. He's going to get met with a call. Turns the 5 of clubs. So this is where it gets kind of interesting, and this is where his question comes into play. He said, I'm hoping to hear Berkey talk on this one, gives the dynamic of what happened. And then he goes, I'm not sure how to get more value out of this hand without checking back the turn. And I think that sentiment is where he starts to get into the muck, because the issue is that, like, okay, you have top sets, so you have all the top pairs blocked, mostly. You also have the queen of clubs, so you have the top pairs that have redraws blocked, mostly. But what I don't think is really being considered is like what the overall range construction of the hijack looks like here after a raise and a 3-bet.
Yeah.
It's mostly going to be suited hands, right? So the real reason to check back the turn is for fear that our opponent is too dense to flushes. But that's actually not necessarily going to be the case. When we see bet for 40% on the flop, we just need to conceptualize how that range is going to continue. And it's going to be basically built out of 3 parts. It's going to be showdown value hands, so pairs that can't fold to one single bet. And this is going to be like pretty much any pair on the board, and then some of the middling pocket pairs. So like pocket 10s isn't going to fold, pocket 9s probably not going to fold, pocket jacks, if he has them, probably not going to fold, right? So those hands are all going to exist in some capacity. The second part will be front door draws. So the immediate gut shots, any open end, well, I guess no open enders exist. 9-10's double gutted though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So like a hand like 9-10 would be double gutted. That's always going to continue pure. Any front door flush draws, and then any like backdoor combo draws. These are all going to continue. So those are going to be your 3 parts. It's going to be front door draws, backdoor draws, and then immediate showdown value. So what we can expect when we arrive at the turn on the turn 5 is that nothing has really completed except the 6-5-2 pair and the flush. I shouldn't say nothing because obviously the flush is a big deal. My point was no straights complete. He doesn't have 7-9, so that's really not much of an issue. So he has 3 combos of 2 pair, and then he has like whatever potential slow plays he may have continued through with on the flop. So he might have pocket 8s at some frequency. He may have pocket 6s at some frequency that he just chose to check call. And then obviously he's going to have flushes. Now the SPR here is 2.5. The question that Fist Magnet really needs to ask himself is, how often do I really want to have this hand in my range of hands that plays for stacks? And then secondarily, how often do I think we will actually play for stacks if I bet the turn, right? Now, the first answer should be quite often. And the big reason for this is that you still cool off a fair portion of his range. 6-5 is dead and can't fold.
Yep.
Set of 6s and set of 8s are mostly dead and can't fold, right? On top of that, there still do exist some offsuit combinations of hands, albeit very few, that have a naked club draw.
Yeah, it could be ace queen.
Ace queen's the specific one.
Right, of course.
Right? Ace queen is clearly there.
Yeah.
And you block ace queen of clubs, which is a great event.
Right.
So you block ace queen of clubs, queen 10 of clubs, queen jack of clubs, king queen of clubs. You block all the suited queens that very easily improve. And you unblock the suited queens that had to call one and will be in a tough spot facing a second barrel. That's good. You want to make Queen X indifferent and let all of his shit just have easy decisions, right? Also, let's not forget that there's going to be like some pocket jacks and pocket 10s with a club. They don't necessarily have a super easy decision facing bet also.
Right.
So once we answer that, like clearly we want to have this hand in our value range and be willing to play for stacks, it's not only because it can get called by worse, which very clearly it can, but it's also because it can improve. So we don't only want to bucket flushes in here, right? Because sometimes we're just going to get cooled off if that's the case, right? Sometimes we're going to have 10-9 of clubs here, and our opponent's just going to have like king queen of clubs, and we're just fucking dead. And that sucks because, well, our value range is only flushes. So the times that we're cooled off, we never get to improve and we're just fucked, right? That's shitty. It also means that our bluffs won't function all that well because some of our bluffs are going to want to follow through on a board pair. And in order for us to follow through on a board pair, we have to be betting some sets. It's almost always going to be better to be betting top set. Well, it'll always be better to be betting top set versus bottom set if we're comparing the two. Right. Sixes actually get cooled off. Queens get to cool everything else off. That kind of thing, right? So I think that what is clearly missed here is how high of a frequency, I assume anyway, pocket queens will be as a bet here. Now, Fist Magnet chose to check back. I imagine it checks at some frequency, especially with a club.
Yeah.
Like if we're going to find the top set that checks, I imagine it's going to be the top set with a club that checks back. But nevertheless, I think that this is like a very clear bet, and I would just size again for like 40% pot. I don't see, like, basically when flush completing cards come through, we're kind of capped.
Yeah,
like half potish.
50,
yeah, half potish. You know, on a different texture in a single raise pot and maybe greater depth, we might have a bigger size. But yeah, I would bet like 40% pot on turn, which would be, I guess, what are we looking at here? Like
40% pot?
Yeah, would be like 7.5 blinds. Is that right?
No, more than that. Just 30 in there.
Yeah, so 10% pot would be 3.
50. It'd be like 12 blinds.
Oh yeah, 12. What am I doing?
These are professional poker players, guys.
I'm like 10% would be 3, so obviously 40
I was like,
would
how
be
are you
25.
getting 7? I'm like, well, 15 is
Bird brain.
Yeah,
Absolute
right.
bird brain. So yeah, I would bet something like 12 blinds on the turn, which would set up a river of, I guess you have 54 in there with like, yeah, you have about pot, a little over pot, maybe like pot and a quarter behind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine because like you're not always going to play for stacks. Like when this river comes out and you get checked to, you probably have a pretty tight check back, right? You just don't really beat too much. You can't really get called by much worse any longer. There's some 2 pairs that might have to defend. And yeah, you might be able
Sets
to like,
are still going to call.
yeah, you might be able to like get thin and just bet like 40% a third time.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you know, you don't want to get jammed on.
Right.
You feel pretty shitty about it.
Yeah.
So I think that like you kind of just let the hand play out as it may. Now, if a brick comes off, if a river deuce comes off, now we just have to figure out, is top set worth an all in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Debatable. And you know, we can kind of defer to the wizard to check it out. As played, this is really close. This is really.
My hand is going in the muck.
Well, we know that, Guapo.
I don't think that this by any stretch is a layup fold, but I would bet this hand mixes. Which is, and I might be wrong, but I'm just assuming for this size, 120% pot. The reason Vanachik Poker gets to choose this size is because it puts your 8x in hell. And when we check back the turn, we should have a lot of hands that just can't really call a bet on the end, like 1 pairs, jacks, 10s, 9s, right? Like those hands can just never call a bet anyway. It doesn't really matter. Outside of a block, perhaps, they can't really call. So he has to forego targeting the single pairs whenever he chooses to bet river, and instead start targeting the most probable next tier holding, which is just going to be straights, right? So it's like, well, I need to go after, sorry, I said 8x, I meant 9x. It's like I need to start going after 9x here. And when Fist Magnet checks back, he almost never has a flush unless he's slow playing. It needs to be like a super flush, like Ace Queen of clubs. Yeah, exactly. King Queen of clubs, maybe. Mm-hmm. Even that doesn't feel great to slow play, but sure, it's fine.
Something where they just can't have any.
Yeah, you just block like their ability to ever suck out, right? Yeah. So you're only going to have like a couple combinations of flushes at most, and you're almost never going to have sets unless you decide to check back like 6s, which is reasonable, right? Like 6s will probably be your highest frequency check back when it comes to sets. You'll have some rivered 2 pairs. You'll have 8-7 and 6-7 in range at some frequency, I'm sure. And then you'll have like a lot of the pair plus 9. So you'll just have like 8-9 that you didn't have any reason to bet on the turn. It's too strong to bluff and it's too weak to value bet, right? You'll have Queen 9 suited, which again, same thing, right? Like pretty clear check back. You'll have perhaps a little bit of Jack 9 of diamonds, 9-10 of diamonds that you choose to not bet twice, right? So when he chooses this large size on the end, for value, it's going to be like 9-10 plus and flushes. For bluffs, it's going to be hands that interact with that, right? He's going to have the naked ace of clubs sometimes. Maybe not, though, because I don't think ace, queen, ace of clubs would bluff like this.
No.
It probably just either checks or blocks. So maybe he has like jacks with a club, 10s with a club. Those hands now clearly don't win often enough on a one-liner. Maybe he has to bluff those. Maybe he chooses hands like no interaction hands, like some sort of, or I shouldn't say no interaction hands, but like ace 8 of diamonds, for instance, ace 6 of diamonds if he has it, ace 7 of diamonds for a rivered middle pair. These might be good hands to bluff with because you block some of the bluff catchers like 2 pair. In any event, like you're in a really, really, really fucked spot with top set now. And my best guess is, without having looked at the sim yet, is that it's going to mix call fold. But I could be wrong. It might pure call because we have the club. I'm not sure.
I'm going to put myself out there and go 80-20, specifically on
80-20
the turn.
Which way?
Specifically on the turn. So on the turn, I think is 80% you should be betting, 20% check back, and then on the river, 80% fold.
Okay, I'll book against 80% fold. I think turn, you probably almost.
That seems
always
like
bet.
a lot of folding on the river.
Yeah. I think on turn you almost always bet, but I think when you arrive at river, I'll book against 80% fold for sure.
Yeah, just because he has so many natural. I mean, he has bluffs.
Right.
Like he has a lot of bluffs.
They're there.
The villain has
They're
a lot
there.
of bluffs.
Yeah,
so
they're
it's
there.
like, yeah.
Remember how his range is compartmentalized.
Right.
It's front door draws, showdown value, and backdoor draws.
Right.
All the backdoor draws have to start bluffing. Not all, but like some.
So what are you saying for the river?
For river,
50-50?
if queens with the queen of clubs folds, I think it's probably like 30%.
70-30.
Yeah.
30%
fold. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's mostly going to play call, which he does ultimately call and get shown the bad news. I believe he was up against 9-10, if I recall.
Yeah, let's see the end of that hand. Guapo.
Give me
heard you.
a second.
I didn't know if you heard me or not. My bad.
Hey, the Nutter Butters.
Yeah, I think it's a really well played vibe.
Double gutter.
I think it's a very well played hand by Vanchka. And I don't think Fist Magnet makes any clear errors. Because I do think that the turn probably mixes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the question in which he framed it, I think, is where my perspective is different. I think, like he said, basically, I don't know how to get more value without checking the turn. And I think that that's a clear oversight.
Right.
Your hand will just naturally accrue value.
When
Thinking
you break down his range, you can see
you're thinking
the
too
hands.
much, like Guapo yesterday. You're thinking too much about the nothing portion of his range that's never supposed to put money in the middle, right? The backdoor floats, the middle pairs, the shit that just doesn't matter, right? Like those aren't going to be the portion of range that you want to be targeting. A card fell that changed that, right?
Yeah.
We want to be targeting the portion of range that just has to continue versus a smallish type size, and 40% seems to be in the right capacity. Honestly, if you bet quarter pot on the turn, I wouldn't be shocked, because quarter pot doesn't get jammed on when you're 2 pots behind.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really the big thing you want to try to avoid, I guess, with a mergy-ish. Not even the top set is mergy here, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's in the vicinity of feeling like we're getting a little thin for value. So if it bet quarter pot in position, I truly wouldn't be shocked. My instincts say that it's probably closer to 40, just based off of like shit that I've seen. Let's take a look at the wizard and let's see how right or wrong we got this. Once again, big shout out to GTO Wizard, our feature sponsor of In the Muck. We appreciate you guys as always. Okay, so as you can see, we ran this 80 big blinds effective MTT stack, made the SPR according to what we saw in game. Queen 8 6-2 clubs, we see that out of position playing pure check. That's no shock. And okay, we are correct here. It's a 40% frequency, and the 66% is like almost never used. So if we look at what chooses the smallish size, we see it's just like a spattered amount of range that is mostly just like top pair plus type of stuff, and then like some nothing, like ace 5, no draw, ace 5 of spades, ace 5 of hearts, that type of stuff. So you could probably simplify here to a single size. It encapsulates pretty much the entire range. Nothing really checks at a super high frequency, which I think is worth noting. So this is closer to a range bet board. We see like the ace 6 types hands, the bottom pairs, specifically ones without the back doors. So spades and hearts, they do a little bit more checking. And then like a hand like jack 8, so middle pair type holding, same thing without the back doors, does a fair amount of checking. But, we're in there. Sevens is the only pure check. And that's mostly a byproduct of it being like square in the middle, where there isn't any 6x left when we have sevens to really target for value, and 8x doesn't fold.
Yeah.
So like we kind of just get value cut a bit.
You just have to check. Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with 5s. I didn't even realize we had 5s in there, but okay. So we're going to play 40%. Oh, the response. Yeah. So you can see that hijack actually does a lot of check raising here, which may or may not take place in game. When we look at like 10-9 specifically, we see that it's the front door, back door combos. So even though I was mentioning like that portion of the range is what ultimately continues, it's also what's ultimately pretty aggressive, right? So we see that the front door 10-9 is a pure raise, 10-9 of clubs. So he actually doesn't even have that hand, technically speaking, through the call node. And then a hand like 10-9 of diamonds is favoring raise a lot. But all 10-9 continues, as we kind of mentioned.
Yeah.
Same with, the middling pair hands. You can see the 9-8 no backdoors is doing a lot of playing aggressively here.
9-8 with no backdoor, so like 9-8 of spades?
Yep, spades and hearts, almost pure for both.
Wow.
Whereas 9-8 of diamonds is a pure call. 8-7 kind of plays in the inverse. Like this is where we start to play a lot more passively. These are where our bluff catchers start to come from.
And then the backdoors want to play passively because equity realization purposes?
Not necessarily, because like you can see that they play aggressively when we don't have pairs.
Mm-hmm.
So we naturally realize more when we have the pair.
Okay.
Which basically it's combining the equity of the backdoor with the showdown value, right?
Mm-hmm. So
we get the bluff catch more easily. Calling 10 high twice versus like a turn big size is hard.
Right.
So we want to be front loading a little bit more aggression there. Okay, so like when he does play calls, it's going to be very similar to like what I was kind of saying. We can look at the range breakdown here real quickly, and we can see that when we're talking about showdown value, it's his top pairs and below that start playing a high mix of calls, which is exactly what we were saying, right? Like 2 pair plus is going to mostly raise. There is some trapping taking place here with sets and 2 pairs, and like when we look at what they are, it's of course just going to be the worst of them. 8s is almost a pure raise. 6s does a little bit more trapping, right? Not really much of any 2 pair on the flop. I don't even know where that was coming from, to be quite. Oh, I guess we have a tiny sliver of 8-6.
Very small.
Very, very small. And the one with the backdoor properties plays call. And then furthermore, whenever we look at like the nothing, we see that the combo draws play pretty aggressively, but then the rest of it is just going to be like the front door flush draws, the open-ended straight draws, the gut shots. These are all pure continuing. You can see no folds from hands that are drawing to the nuts in any capacity. And then we start to see a pretty heavy mix when it comes to like backdoor flush draws with 2 cards. So that's going to be the diamonds versus backdoor flush draws with 1 card. And this is going to be like mostly pocket pairs since we don't have a lot of offsuit, as we mentioned. So
like the jacks with the jack of clubs.
Yeah, so like ace jack with the ace of clubs, we can see does some floating. And then, it's going to be like jacks, 10s, 9s, and then a hand like ace queen. These are going to be where we're pulling our 1 club hands from. All right, turn 5, we see a club. This is obviously advantageous. So fist instincts weren't terrible. Like he does get to have a fair amount of blocks here for about 10% of his range. And as we mentioned, it's a lot of what we think. Like 8-7 improves to a pair and an open ender. 7-6, same thing, pair and an open ender. 6-5 now improves to 2 pair. Has a little bit of the 8-6 remaining, the 8-6 of diamonds specifically.
So he checks 90%.
This is Vinash.
This is
Yeah, this is
out
the
of
guy
position.
that's out of position.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
right. So now when we look at the imposition
There we
strategy,
go.
okay,
That's
I wasn't even close.
That's much better.
yeah, okay, and we're right on it here. 40% bet. You can see ace queen suited bets always. That's a great indicator as to what you should be doing with queens, right? Now ace queen is betting largely due to vulnerability's sake, but the point is it's still worth 40% pot to bet. Pure.
Always queens.
Well, ace queen suited.
Oh yeah, always queen suits.
Right.
And,
and almost
specifically,
all
what is his,
ace queen
what
off.
does his hand do, Matt?
Queens?
Yeah, Queen of Hearts, Queen of Clubs.
So no club, it's pretty much a pure bet. With a club, it looks like it's what how often are we checking here? Oh. No.
Queen of Hearts, Queen of Clubs.
Yeah, where does it show the actual
at the bottom.
percentage?
Right
No,
there,
no.
30.
No, that's the EV.
Hmm.
I think I have it messed up here. Let's see. Strategy. Yeah, there you go. So it's about 30% check with a club.
Yeah.
Yeah, same for both. So about 70-30 split. So, again, he's not wrong.
Wait, it's 7. Oh, okay.
70% bet, 30% check. If he has no
Okay,
club, then
I
it's a
was
pure
close.
bet. Yeah, you said 80-20?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's very close. Instincts are good. I just think like what's important to recognize here is the way that the ranges are breaking down here, in the sense that the advantage isn't nearly as great to the out of position as maybe it may feel. That 5 isn't as bad as one may think. When you look at like what our range composition is, we have a lot of flushes. 6% of our range is flushes, right? We still have a lot of overpairs that can still improve to a flush themselves. And then we still carry through some amount of sets. So like 25% of our range, almost 40% of our range is like top pair plus. That's usually going to be a good indicator that you're free to bet. Now you can see that we are out flushed here, right? 14% of our opponent's range is flushes, but he just lacks a lot of the rest, right? So he has flushes and then like top pair and then a bunch of shit. And that asymmetry is what allows us to reopen the action now whenever we're in position, because we have a linear range of hands that we can bet with, and that's why we choose the 40% size instead of something polar.
Right.
If we had his range, we'd be a little bit more inclined to go polar, maybe a little bit less so because, you know, flushes are those types of boards are very specific.
But maybe you'd choose like the 60% instead of the 40.
Right. Yeah. And we might see something like that if the board texture were a little bit different. If it were like queen, 8, 5, deuce, 3 clubs, you know, then we might see the 66 come through.
Yeah.
In any event, when we choose to check, we can see like how this plays out as played. When we choose to check and the river is a 7 offsuit.
Yeah.
Not diamond.
7
right?
of spades.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the diamond would have changed things a little just because it reduces combos. Now we can see, okay, he didn't really miss on the sizing terribly. Kind of just, oh wait, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong
he
one.
went pot or he
Yeah, sorry.
right?
I was looking at the button.
He went 120.
He went 120. Okay, so yeah, he got a hedges here, right? If we simplified this to a single size strat, I imagine it would just land around 75% pot. And you would just do a lot more checking. You can see that he does have viable all-ins, and 10-9 suited is a part of them, all 10-9s. So his idea to go large with 10-9 is correct. He just missed a bit on the sizing in the sense that it should have either been jam or the lesser size of 66%, which he's going to fit a lot more hands into.
Jam's like 250%.
Yeah. So let's simplify this and only have 2 sizes of what he chose at 120% and then like the 40% block. I think the 66% is probably a little bit redundant. Let's see how this plays out. Okay, so now you can see that 10-9 suited pretty much only bets the large size, which is what he actually chose in game. And you can see that most of the hands that are choosing large are going to be straights, as well as like flushes. So he doesn't have any sets for this size. So that's what's going to make it difficult for queens, is that you don't cool any hands off any longer. He doesn't have any sets. He doesn't have any of his 2 pairs. But he has a very polar range of straights plus and then bluffs. So you can see that he has his ace jack with the ace of clubs. That's going to be a bluff. You can see that he has his ace jack of diamonds is going to be where he pulls some of his bluffs. So as we kind of said, like those high card backdoor floats will now fall into the polarized bluffing line. When he chooses this size and we face it with queens, oh wow. I was closer than Guapo, but still wrong. It's a pure call.
It's a pure call.
Pure call.
Wow.
I thought it would mix because we don't cool anything off any longer. Like we don't face the size from worse showdown value, but it just doesn't matter because we don't have that many hands to call with when we come through the check line. Look, as you can see, we have king 9 for a straight, queen 9 for a straight, as I mentioned. That's going to be one of the checkbacks. Jack 9 of diamonds, as I mentioned, was a checkback. The 10-9s, as I mentioned, were checkbacks, right? These are going to be areas that we start to call. Now we have to start reaching for hands that just block his value.
Yeah.
So you can see that, like, you know, queen 8, which doesn't really beat worse value, but still gets in there purely, right? So all sets that arrive here are obviously calling pure. All the 2-pair hands are calling pure. And a little bit of that is because some of his bluffs are going to be derived from these type of hands. Or I guess maybe some of his value? Because yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Honestly, I'm not sure, other than I guess it has to reach because we just don't have any flushes, right? I actually don't know if we have any flushes. Let's look at the breakdown. 1% of our range.
Yeah.
So we only have 1% of our range that's flush.
Just because we don't check back any.
Right.
On the
Like
turn.
ace queen of clubs. Maybe
Right,
it's like
on
the
the
only
turn,
thing
yeah.
we kick.
We don't even have it.
We don't. So we
We,
don't.
we just don't take this line with ace queen of clubs.
Right. No, we don't.
Maybe we don't bet it as often on the flop, I guess. But remember, ace queen was a pure bet on the turn, right? Ace queen suited was a pure bet on the turn. So any ace queen of clubs that carried through, we do actually just bet. Our only flushes are queen seven of clubs and king queen of clubs. So it is the pair plus, as we mentioned.
Just a different one.
But it's not the nut one.
Because you want them to have
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just that it's worth more.
Right.
You know, the nut flush is just worth more than a queen high flush.
Yeah.
It's kind of that thing. And we don't have that many nut flushes in the 3-bet node. So yeah, like we're pretty devoid of flushes. So we have to just start reaching for calls. You can see that like 10-8 calls at some frequency, right? Because it just blocks nuts, blocks 10-9. Jack-8 calls at some frequency because it blocks Jack-9 of diamonds.
Guapo, you find those calls?
Bro was folding queens.
I think you know the answer to that.
Bro said he's folding queens 80% here.
80%, it's a pure call.
They just
call.
always have it, guys.
It's a pure call.
They just always have it.
Let them have it, man. You got to just pay. So yeah, big shout out to I only remember half his name now. Fist Magnet. That's right.
Yeah.
He's one of our community members. We appreciate the submission. Thank you so much for that.
Conrad's a palm magnet.
Don't beat yourself up. Conrad is a palm magnet. Don't beat yourself up too much over it. The turn check back is theoretically fine. It's just maybe your reasoning behind it wasn't so great. If you guys also have an In the Muck segment that you'd like to submit, we're going to be doing at least one submission a week as a part of our activation here. To demonstrate GTO Wizard a little bit more frequently. Feel free to head over to our Discord. You can find that link on our Twitter page at onlyfriends_pod. Just join the Discord group and we have a dedicated forum to the In the Muck segment. Also, don't forget that we have an academy coming up in about 10 days, January 15th to the 17th. You can sign up for that at academy.solveforwhy.io. Limited seating remaining. Also, we do have seats available still for March and May. So we're going to have 3 cash academies before the World Series, as well as an MTT academy that's led by Matt Hunt at the end of May, right before the World Series starts. So be sure to look into that if you're interested. Today was a long one, boys. Today went a little longer than expected. We got a little ranty. It tends to happen.
You know?
I'm not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
I'm happy to do it. We appreciate you guys all for tuning in. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Click the bell. Make sure you get the notifications for when we're live. We are here 5 days a week. If you don't know, now you know. Generally going to be Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. There might be some times that we have to switch it up because of the academy or I got to see to Bobby's room. But in any event, this is what you can expect from us day in and day out. A lot of poker talk, a lot of Steeler talk, and a lot of me slapping Conrad in the face. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow for the final show of the week, 11 a.m. Pacific. We'll see you all then.
Peace.
Peace.